Hello friends, I'm a Growing Brave Bender. My name is Jeffrey Duvik, and I'm the Strategy and Innovation Intern here at MB. Over the course of the summer, myself and the other interns researched the topic Millennials and Benefits. Now you might be wondering, why does this topic matter to me? Well, the reason that it matters is because millennials make up the majority of the workforce today. So you need to make sure as an organization to have a benefits package that is attractive to millennials so that you can attract the top talent in the market. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into the presentation. So this first slide has a lot of information on it, so bear with me, but it's important to have an understanding of millennials because you can't have a benefits package that is catered to them unless you understand aspects about them. So the first aspect I want to hit on is family. So I guess first bullet point that I want to touch on in the family difference among millennials is there is a huge difference in marriage rate among millennials than any other generation. So only 44% of millennials were married in the year 2019 compared to 53% of Gen Xers and 61% of baby boomers. So as you can see, there's a decline in the marriage rate, which affects the benefits that you offer. The next point that I want to hit on is there's a delay in childbirth among millennials. So only 55% of millennial families decided to have children, and compared to past generations, which Gen X was 62% and baby boomers was 64%, this is a significant drop. And this delay in childbirth is due to multiple reasons, but the one reason that is extremely significant is because they just aren't wanting as big as families as past generations. So millennials are delaying childbirth and are giving birth at millennial women are giving birth on average at the age of 35 to 36 years old. So this is extremely late in life compared to other generations. And then the last difference among the family life is they do not have the traditional household that used to be. So older generations, you didn't live with each other until you were married. This is no longer the case among millennials. Partners live with one another before they get married, so that has an impact on the benefits that you offer. The next point that I want to hit on is the tech savviness of the millennial generation. So as we all know, millennials, most of the time you can see them walking around the office with phone in hand, and this is because they grew up with technology being the center point of their life. This was the first generation where technology was readily available to them. So the first thing that I want to hit on is how prevalent it is in millennials' lives, how technology is so prevalent in their lives. The average millennial spends about 4 hours a day on the internet or on their smartphone, aside from the average workday. So you work 8 hours. After those 8 hours are up, the millennials spend an average of 4 more hours on either their smartphone or their desktop computer. And another key aspect of millennials is that they prefer apps as opposed to the desktop computers. And the reason for this is convenience. Millennials always have their phone by their side. And so rather than lugging around a computer, they can just put their phone in their pocket and have the world basically at their fingertips. So when surveyed, 3 in 4 millennials say that they prefer to use apps. And again, it's due to the convenience factor. I can pay my Discover credit card bill by just scanning my Face ID, and then I can have access to all my bills. And this is something that the millennial generation loves. And the last bullet point in the tech-savvy aspect of the presentation that I want to hit on is the prevalence of social media. So millennials spend on average about 2.5 hours a day on social media. That is a lot of time. And the top reason that millennials are using social media today is to get news and to stay up to date on current events. And that's been a shift from past generations. Past generations, when social media came around, they used social media to stay connected to friends they couldn't see every day. But the millennials are using social media, whether it be Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, they're using it to stay up to date on current events. Now, the next aspect of millennials that I want to touch on is the money aspect. So millennials have the fastest growing debt load among any generation. So the average millennial has about $27,251 in debt, and this is in non-mortgage debt, keep in mind. And on top of this debt, as Drew's going to talk about later in this presentation, they have an average of almost $30,000 in student loan debt. That, when you combine it all together, is almost $60,000 in debt, which is a tremendous obstacle to overcome. And the next point that I kind of want to hit and touch on, because it's important, is millennials, more than any other generation, they struggle with financial literacy. So whether it be they weren't exposed to financial literacy in high school, like previous generations, or their parents didn't talk about it much, they struggle understanding finances. Only 24% of millennials demonstrate a basic financial literacy. And that number is alarming because they are making purchases without understanding the repercussions of it. So that is extremely important to keep in mind. And kind of the last data point that I want to give is that millennials, 35% of them have some sort of debt in collection. So this goes back again to the financial literacy. They don't understand maybe that student loans are, you can't file bankruptcy, and student loans don't disappear because you file for bankruptcy. And so that's important to hit on. And the last point that I want to touch on in the money aspect is retirement savings. So 66% of millennials have not started saving for any type of retirement. This is alarming because, as many of you know, it takes a long time to build up the money that you need in order to retire. So the sooner you start, the better off you will be, and maybe you'll be able to retire sooner. And of the 33% of millennials that have started saving, they only have $23,000 saved up in their retirement fund, which is significantly lower compared to other generations. So Gen X, they on average at the same point in their lives had $64,000 saved up, and baby boomers had $144,000 saved up in retirement. So as you can see, there's been a significant drop off among millennials. And then the last point that I want to hit on and topic I want to talk about is how much millennials value the work-balance life. And I know many of you probably understand this working with them day in and day out, but 80% of millennials seriously consider how a job would affect their work-balance life before even applying to the job. Now, once they have access to the job, if they cannot achieve the successful work-life balance, this is going to cause them to leave your organization, which you don't want at all because it ends up costing your organization money. And then the last bullet point on this slide is millennials have a different view of success. So millennials' view of success is going to be, can I spend time with my family? Can I spend time with my partner? Do I have time to do the things I enjoy outside of life? And before previous generations, success was viewed by how much money I make and can I climb the corporate ladder. And this is no longer the case with millennials. So this is something to keep in mind as we talk about the benefits that are important to millennials in the workforce.
So on this slide, I'm just going to list the 6 benefits that we consistently saw millennials find to be important. Those benefits being unlimited PTO, pet insurance, innovative wellness programs, comprehensive employee assistance programs, student loan repayment options, and telemedicine.
First up, we're going to talk about unlimited PTO. Unlimited PTO is crucial for the millennial generation. 80% of millennials actually said that they think about how their job is going to impact their work-life balance before even applying. And one way to help ease the millennials' nerves about applying for your job is to offer this unlimited PTO, because they now know if they need a day off, they can take it. No questions asked. So there are some pros and cons that come with unlimited PTO, and I first want to hit on the pros before I hit on the cons. So the first pro about offering unlimited PTO is the work-life balance. As I said, it allows millennials to achieve that perfect work-to-life balance that they're always looking for, and as we already talked about, is so crucial to them. Another pro is increased productivity. So we've all heard that everyone needs a mental health day every once in a while, but if you only have 2 weeks of vacation, it can be difficult to take that mental health day. So by offering unlimited PTO, you can prevent burnout among your employees and make sure that they are staying as productive as possible in the situation, whatever they are working in. Now that we've touched on some of the pros, let's hit on some of the cons as well. So we all know that unlimited PTO does not mean truly unlimited. You cannot just take off 3 months and expect to have a job when you come back. So a lot of millennials struggle with, well, I love that I have this unlimited PTO, but is there a limit? What is the limit? Can they have some loose guidelines to this new benefit? And millennials are wanting that because they obviously do not want to lose their job because they've taken too much time off. So that is one perceived negative aspect of unlimited PTO, is that lack of clarity and lack of guidance of what is too much time off, what isn't enough, and things of that nature. And then lastly, the unfair treatment. So many times unlimited PTO and vacation time is left to the discretion to be approved by a manager of some sorts. So what you run into is that maybe one manager is more lenient than the other. Maybe one manager lets people after 4 weeks of vacation, they're like, no, I mean, so it's really not unlimited. But maybe another manager is strict and says, 2 weeks and that's it. So that's where you kind of run into problems, but working through those problems and making sure you have a good game plan within your generation can make sure that you can utilize unlimited PTO to its fullest potential.
Up next, we are going to talk about pet insurance. Before I get into the details about pet insurance, I'm going to share with you a couple statistics regarding millennials and their pets. According to a study done by MetLife, about 62% of millennial pet parents say that they would put their pet's health before their own. Additionally, about 73% of millennial pet parents say that they are willing to go into debt in order to provide for their pet's well-being. Nearly 47% of millennial pet parents have gone into debt in order to provide for their pet's well-being. About 62% of Ohio households own a pet currently, yet only about 15% of companies nationally offer pet insurance for their employees. There are two different kinds of pet insurance. There's accident and there's illness. Accident is going to cover your emergencies and your injuries. And illness is going to cover your ear infections and your cancers, etc. So we are going to compare the average premium rates between a dog and a cat for accident only and accident and illness. For a dog, annually, the average premium rates for accident and illness are $585, whereas for a cat, they're only about $349. Additionally, for accident only, it is about annually $194 for a dog and $126 for a cat. Now, there are a couple benefits and a couple problems that come along with pet insurance. Some of the benefits include offering pet insurance for your employees will allow them to save money to put towards other things, such as a 401k or mortgage for their home. Additionally, it will allow your employees to not worry about the cost of affording a pet and will allow them to just enjoy spending time with their pet. Now, we all know that our pets are a really important part of our lives, and so if you're stressing about how you're going to be able to provide for your pet's well-being at home, that's going to hinder your performance at work. Lastly, the problems that come along with pet insurance. So as we noticed in rates, there is a little bit of unfair treatment when it comes to pet insurance because of all of the factors that go into your average premium rates. Some of these factors include the age, the type of pet that you have, your location, and any underlying conditions that your pet may have. Additionally, because pet insurance is such a new concept, the policies may not be very well thought out yet, and they're still a little bit confusing. So it's a bit unsure as to how to move forward with implementing pet insurance into your company.
For our next slide, we need to realize that millennials want an innovative wellness program. Millennials want to be cared about by their employer, not only by their work performance, but their lifestyle choices and their actual well-being outside of work. This is important because it actually can be a win-win for the employee and the employer. A healthy mind and a healthy body actually increases work performance, while also potentially lowering the cost the employer has to provide with benefits to their employee. Again, this can be a great potential for a win-win scenario for the employee and their employer. Millennials have pretty much 4 criteria they look for in a good wellness program. They want to have good motivations behind it. They want it to be reachable to them. They want it to be easy and convenient for them to use and implement into their daily life. And they want to have competition within the program. For starters, the motivation a millennial wants in their program is to be rewarded. Don't we all? We want some kind of incentive to do healthy lifestyle implementation in our own lives. Therefore, by implementing or incentivizing reward, millennials will actually be more incentivized to go do out and do the program. For example, Mago and Braybender offers a good wellness program through the MB Step Challenge. Their reward is the top 3 finishers of the Step Challenge get Amazon gift cards, while if the office gets 80% total participation, each individual office that does this gets a pizza party, which is a great incentive to incentivize everyone to do it, no matter if you win or not. Knowing how to reach millennials is crucial. Like Jeff said earlier, millennials are super tech savvy. They're constantly on their phones, which is important to provide a program that can be used on a website or through an app. Specifically, apps would be much more prevalent in a millennial lifestyle than a website. However, a website is still much better than providing a paper copy. Another crucial, important implementation of a wellness program is easy and convenient. Going back to the app, millennials want to be able to be sitting with a friend or a colleague while at a coffee shop and pull out their phone and see how they're doing with their wellness program. By allowing them to have an app to do this, makes it super easy and convenient because there's no pressure to have your laptop on you constantly to keep your updated log. This is important because they can even do it right after dinner so they don't forget, or right when they first wake up. This makes it super easy and, again, very convenient for all, specifically millennials. Lastly, millennials want to have competition in their wellness program. Speaking again on the MB Step Challenge, there's competition throughout. You can be rewarded for finishing in the top. But it also incentivizes you to just compete, have fun with it. It doesn't need to be stressful, and it doesn't need to feel like you have to go out and try to get so many steps, for example. But it's important because a competition, meanwhile a friendly competition, can actually help everyone feel welcomed and a part of it while doing what they feel is necessary for their own body.
Up next, we're going to talk about how important it is to have a comprehensive EAP. So, as you all know, mental health has been in the discussion for many years, and the prevalence in today's society of how it's talked, how much it's talked about, and the view on it is extremely important among millennials. And they want to be able to feel comfortable to talk about their feelings if they're going through anxiety, depression, substance abuse disorder. They want to be able to talk about that. So, the top 3 adverse health conditions affecting millennials today are major depression, substance abuse disorder, and alcohol use disorder. So all 3 of these adverse health conditions can help be combated by having a great EAP. So that is important to note. So now that you know how important and how millennials need an EAP, I want to touch on the aspects that millennials are looking for in their EAP. So the first aspect that millennials are looking for is online resources. So as we've talked about, millennials, they're tech savvy. They want everything to be on the computer or their smartphone, even better. So having those online resources, maybe providing a mindfulness app or a meditation app, or the ability to have video conferences with a counselor to help talk about something that they're struggling with, that can be extremely beneficial. And just a little side note is having that online counseling option for millennials helps them overcome the fear of going to a counselor. So maybe some millennials don't feel comfortable going out and risking others seeing them go to a counselor. Maybe they run into someone while they're going to the counselor. Now, that person knows that I'm struggling. Well, you take that worry away when you are allowed to meet with a counselor from the comfort of your own home. So the next thing millennials are looking for is are meaningful topics. So as we've talked about, millennials struggle with financial issues, and since major depression and anxiety is the top adverse health condition, they struggle with stress management. So make sure the topics that you're putting in your EAP are relevant to millennials and things that they struggle with. Now, this may vary depending on your workforce and the type of employees that you have, but in order to have good participation in an EAP, you need to have topics that are interesting to your demographic. So that is important to keep in mind. And next, millennials want that tailored approach. So if you just have this one-size-fits-all approach to your EAP, millennials take that as, my employer doesn't care about me. They just want to be able to check something off a list. And by having something that your employees feel is individualized to them in their workforce, that will help participation in EAPs increase and will make millennials, the millennial generation, feel like they're valued by their employer. And then lastly, this is a relatively new concept among organizations, but some larger organizations are starting to reward employees for using their EAP. And the reason that companies are starting to do this is to try to get rid of the stigma of mental health and the negative connotation that it has. So employers are rewarding individuals for utilizing this EAP, because not only are the employees helping themselves, but they're helping the organization. You cannot be as productive as you would be if you were in a good mental state, if you're sad or depressed or extremely anxious. So the company is benefiting from this as well. So it is important and extremely crucial for organizations to have this comprehensive employee assistance program.
So next up, we're going to talk about student loan relief. This is a major issue that millennials deal with because 70% of millennials graduate with an average of $30,000 in debt. And one of the main reasons why this has become such a big problem for millennials is their financial literacy is not very good. Many times, if they're not exposed to some kind of finance class, then it's hard for them to comprehend complex financial ideas such as student loan debt and the importance of paying it off to keep it from growing. So one way to combat this is to implement a student loan stipend. And ideally, what this stipend would do is cover the interest expense of a student loan. So it's impossible for the loan to grow, and also creates a better way for the employee to create a bigger dent in their student loan debt. With the interest rates between 2 and 5%, the interest expense ranges from $68 to $132. And so the faster they pay this off, they're able to save for things such as cars, homes, and even retirement, which brings us to the next topic, which is a 401k benefit. This is a benefit that most millennials won't say is important to them because a lot of them don't realize how important it actually is. And the financial literacy with this also plays a huge part as you can see from the graphs, the difference between 7 years of investing could lead to $500,000. And so without the knowledge, a lot of them choose not to invest in this because it seems like just another expense coming out of their paycheck. However, Investopedia says that 45% of people have a chance to outlive their retirement savings, and financial institutions recommend saving anywhere between 15 and 20%. However, the average for millennials is around 7%. So one way we can combat these low saving rates is to implement a 50% match on 12% of their income instead of doing a 100% match on 6%. This creates a savings of 18% for the millennial with the 50% match instead of a 12% with the 100% match. And giving millennials access to this information, such as the importance of compound interest, requires some kind of class provided by the employer. While they may not appreciate it at first, they definitely will once they start learning the power behind all this stuff.
Lastly, millennials do not want certain benefits provided by their employer. It's important to note the difference between the age gap here, because they're at pivotal moments of their lives that are very important to understand and realize. Millennials' age gap is 26 to 40 years old. On the lower end, they are potentially just beginning their professional careers, with very few of them having a family yet. On the older end, they're having families. They're settling down into their career roles and their daily life. This is important to note because the one-size-fits-all method does not apply here. On the lower end, they might be more concerned with certain benefits, while the older end might be concerned with different benefits because of these different pivotal moments in their lives happening. To start, millennials do not want paid volunteer work. Millennials are more focused on business and career development, while focusing on a healthy work and life balance. Gen Z is more focused on social responsibility, which they would be more inclined to having paid volunteer work. Millennials also do not want a stipend for at-home work. Gen Z never had an office setting. They are the ones who feel to be provided an at-work home stipend or an internet stipend. While millennials, they had an office setting. They understand COVID affected that, but they don't need to feel incentivized to work from home or to be paid to work from home. Millennials also do not want gym memberships to be provided for by their employer. Gym memberships to them are so different. Millennials have switched. They don't care about a traditional gym setting. For example, they want to go to a cycle bar or a yoga class instead of a traditional gym setting. Also, COVID has affected what gyms look like today. Millennials have gotten on the wave of a Peloton, for example. They can do an at-home workout just as easy, and they don't feel the need that their employer should provide a payment to do this. Also, millennials do not want life insurance, mainly because the age gap, again, is crucial because they do not think about dying, and even those with families don't think they need to provide for their families at this moment because they think they're going to be around for a long time. Lastly, millennials do not want a stipend for childcare. They realize that, again, the majority aren't having children until much later in life. Therefore, it would maybe apply to the older millennials, but certainly not the middle-aged and younger millennials. They're having children less and less and are more focused on potentially staying from home to provide for them, and they don't feel a need that an employer should provide this cost for them.